Claire Morgan had never believed in fate, until the day it found her. It was a grey November morning when a sealed envelope arrived at her apartment in London, stamped with an unfamiliar crest, Morgan & Sons, Legal Estate Division. Inside was a formal letter addressed to Miss Claire Eleanor Morgan, informing her that she had inherited a mansion from a distant relative she didn't even know existed, a great-uncle named Alaric Morgan. At first, she thought it was a scam. But the lawyer's office was real, and the documents genuine. Within a week, curiosity got the best of her. Her life in London was a mess anyway, a dead-end job, unpaid rent, and the feeling that she didn't belong anywhere. Maybe this mysterious inheritance was her second chance. The mansion stood on the edge of the Yorkshire moors, an hour from the nearest town. The road leading there wound through miles of empty fog and skeletal trees. By the time she reached the iron gates, dusk had already fallen. A faint drizzle turned to cold mist as she stepped out of the car. The building loomed like something out of another century, tall, gray, and silent, with ivy crawling up the walls like veins. The windows were dark, but a single lamp glowed faintly by the front door. An old man greeted her, frail, neatly dressed, and expressionless. "Greater than, Miss Morgan," he said, bowing slightly. "I am Mr. Wren, the caretaker. Welcome to Ashbourne Manor." His voice was calm, but his eyes held something unreadable. As he led her through the main hall, Claire's footsteps echoed across marble floors. The air smelled of dust, candles, and something faintly metallic. Paintings covered the walls, portraits of the Morgan family through generations. Their eyes followed her wherever she moved. A chill ran through her as she realized most of them bore a strange resemblance to her own features. Dinner was served in silence, soup and bread, nothing more. Mr. Wren rarely spoke, and when he did, it was with deliberate caution. Before she retired for the night, he looked at her and said softly, "Greater than, if I may, miss, it's best not to wander after midnight. The house is old. It remembers things." Claire tried to laugh it off, but his words stayed in her mind. Her bedroom was vast, an antique four-poster bed, velvet curtains, and a fireplace cold with ashes. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Unable to sleep, she lit a candle and decided to explore a little. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions. She followed it to the library, a magnificent room filled with towering shelves and the smell of aged paper. Her candlelight flickered across gold-lettered spines and dark mahogany furniture. And then she saw it. At the far end of the room, above the fireplace, hung a portrait of a young woman in an ivory dress. Her expression was calm, her skin pale, her dark hair pinned elegantly back. But what froze Claire's breath was her face. The woman in the portrait looked exactly like her. She stepped closer, her candle trembling in her hand. The brass plate beneath read, "Eleanor Morgan, 1891. Claire's heartbeat quickened. She reached out, her fingers just inches from the frame, when she felt a sudden gust of cold air. The flame flickered violently. She turned, the door behind her had shut on its own. The room seemed to darken. She looked back at the portrait, and her blood ran cold. The woman's face was no longer calm. The lips had curved slightly, into a faint, knowing smile. The candle slipped from her hand and rolled across the carpet. She stumbled backward, eyes fixed on the painting. Her mind screamed that it wasn't possible, paint couldn't move. At that moment, the old grandfather clock in the hall struck 12. The sound reverberated through the house. Like a warning, Claire ran back to her room, slammed the door, and pressed her back against it. The whisper of the wind sounded almost like a sigh, or a name. When she finally gathered enough courage to look out her window, she caught a glimpse of something in the fog below. A flicker of movement, a woman in a white dress, standing by the garden gate, staring up at her window. And though it was impossible to hear, Claire could have sworn the woman's lips moved, forming a single word. Morning came gray and heavy with fog. Claire barely slept. The image of the woman in the white dress, the one who looked just like her, haunted every blink. She convinced herself it had been a dream, a trick of her imagination. Old houses made noises, portraits didn't move, and ghosts didn't exist, right? Downstairs, the scent of coffee mingled with damp air. Mr. Wren stood by the window, watching the moors outside. His face looked even paler in the daylight. "Greater than, did you rest well, Miss Morgan?" he asked. She hesitated. "Not really. I thought I saw someone in the garden." Mr. Ren's expression didn't change. The fog plays tricks. You'll see shadows where there are none. Claire tried to smile but felt uneasy. And the portrait, Eleanor Morgan. Who was she? For the first time, he turned fully toward her. Eleanor was your great-grandfather's sister. She lived here her entire life. Some say she went mad after her fiancé died mysteriously. Others say she was murdered. But the truth, he looked away, was buried long ago. Something in his tone made Claire's stomach tighten. Murdered? By who? Mr. Wren adjusted his cuffs. It's not my place to discuss family matters, miss. She wanted to press him, but his eyes were cold and distant, like someone who knew far more than he'd ever say. That night, the storm rolled in. Rain beat against the windows and the wind wailed through the halls like a restless spirit. Claire sat in her bed reading Eleanor's name online, but there were no records, as if the woman had been erased from history. Sometime after midnight, she heard it. A whisper. At first, it was faint, like a sigh caught in the wind. But then it came again, soft and deliberate. Greater than, Claire. She froze. Her heart began to pound. The sound came from somewhere inside the walls. Grabbing a candle, she stepped into the corridor. The air felt colder, thicker. Shadows moved as the flame trembled in her hand. The whisper came again, this time from the library. She hesitated at the door, half expecting the portrait to be waiting for her, smiling again. But the room was empty, quiet except for the storm outside. Then she noticed something odd. The portrait of Eleanor was tilted slightly on one side. Curiosity and fear battled inside her. She reached behind the frame, feeling along the wall, and her fingers brushed something metallic. A small latch. She pulled it. With a soft click, a hidden panel swung open. Inside was a narrow cavity, and within it, a leather-bound diary, its edges brittle with age. Claire sat by the fireplace and began to read. The handwriting was elegant, the ink faded. Greater than June 3, 1891, he's been watching me again. I hear him in the halls when I sleep. He says he loves me, but his eyes are not kind anymore. June 7, if anything happens to me, this house must remember. It must tell the truth. June 9, I know he's coming for me tonight. If anyone finds this, trust no one in this house. Claire's blood ran cold. The last line was written in a hurried scrawl, the ink smeared, as if by shaking hands. Before she could turn another page, the lights flickered. The fire died to embers. Her candle went out. She sat frozen in the darkness, her pulse thudding in her ears. And then, the humming began. A soft melody, old and haunting, like a lullaby sung from another century. It came from behind her, from the portrait. She turned slowly. The faint lightning outside illuminated the face of Eleanor Morgan. The painted eyes seemed to glisten wetly. Who are you? Claire whispered. What do you want? No answer, just that same low hum. She took a step closer, heart racing. Suddenly, the mirror across the room caught her reflection, but it wasn't hers. It was Eleanor's. Same face. Same eyes. Same sorrow. Claire screamed, stumbling backward. The diary slipped from her hands, scattering open on the rug. A photograph fluttered out, a sepia image of Eleanor standing beside a tall man. His face was faint, but something about him felt disturbingly familiar. Lightning flashed. The reflection vanished. The humming stopped. Claire stood trembling in silence, clutching the photo, realizing one terrible truth. Whoever Eleanor was, she wasn't gone. And whatever had happened to her, wasn't finished yet. Claire barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the reflection, Eleanor's face staring back, her lips moving silently in the dark. The diary's final line echoed in her mind, trust no one in this house. When morning came, the mansion felt even emptier. The fog outside was thick as smoke, swallowing the garden and the old iron gates. Mr. Wren was nowhere to be found. His room, at the far end of the corridor, was silent. She knocked. No answer. She pushed the door open. The air was cold. The bed was perfectly made, as if no one had ever slept there. But on the desk lay a sealed envelope, her name written in ink that looked strangely old-fashioned. Her trembling fingers broke the wax seal. Inside was a photograph, a faded portrait of a young Eleanor Morgan standing beside a tall man. But this time, the image was clearer than the one from the diary. The man beside her was unmistakably Mr. Wren. The date beneath the picture read 1890. Claire's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't possible. Mr. Wren would have to be over 130 years old. The air around her felt heavier now, colder. She stumbled back, knocking the chair over. That was when she noticed something else beneath the photo, a brass key, small and ornate, wrapped in a note that said only. Greater than, finish what she started. Claire's heart raced. She looked around the room, searching for any clue of what that meant. Then she remembered the old basement door she had seen near the kitchen, locked since her arrival. The key fit perfectly. The door creaked open to reveal a staircase descending into the earth. The smell of damp stone and age-old dust filled the air. She descended slowly, candlelight trembling in her hand. At the bottom, she found a vast underground chamber. The walls were lined with canvases, dozens of unfinished paintings covered in sheets. In the center stood an easel, holding a single large portrait. It was Eleanor. But unlike the one upstairs, this painting was incomplete, her face only half finished, the other half blank and ghostly white. Claire's candle flickered as a soft voice filled the air. Greater than, you found it. She spun around. No one there. The whisper came again, closer. Greater than, he trapped me here, in his work. Eleanor. Claire whispered. What do you want from me? Greater than, to finish what he began, and set me free. The air stirred, and suddenly, the portraits hanging on the walls began to shiver. The sheets covering them slipped away, revealing faces, all painted in the same eerie style. Every one of them bore a resemblance to Eleanor, and to Claire. Her pulse thundered. What is this place? Then, she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing from behind. Mr. Wren emerged from the shadows, his eyes calm, his hands clasped behind his back. But his face, it looked wrong. His skin too pale, his expression too still. Greater than, I see you've found my gallery, he said quietly. Eleanor's spirit was difficult to contain. But I've preserved her. I preserved them all. He gestured to the paintings. Claire's voice trembled. You killed her. He tilted his head slightly. She was ungrateful. I gave her immortality, in art. And now, you've come to continue her legacy. He stepped closer. Claire backed away, gripping the candle like a weapon. Greater than, you're not human, she whispered. He smiled faintly. Neither are you, not anymore. The wind roared through the cracks in the walls. The portraits seemed to breathe, their painted eyes glimmering wetly. Claire turned toward Eleanor's half-finished face, and in that instant, she understood. Eleanor hadn't been haunting the house. She'd been trapped, her soul imprisoned in the canvas. And now, the same fate awaited her. Mr. Wren raised his hand. The candle blew out. Darkness swallowed her. When light returned, it wasn't from a flame, it came from the painting. Claire stood before the canvas, her reflection merging with Eleanor's. The blank half of the face filled with color, her color. Her eyes, her lips, her terror. From somewhere behind the walls, she heard Eleanor's whisper. Greater than, it's done. Then silence. Days later, the townspeople noticed smoke curling from the forest. Ashbourne Manor had burned through the night. The fire brigade found nothing but ruins, no sign of Claire Morgan or the caretaker. But among the ashes, a single wall remained standing, and on it hung a portrait, miraculously untouched by the flames. A young woman in an ivory dress. Her expression calm. Her eyes, alive. The brass plate beneath read. Claire Eleanor Morgan, 2025. And if you looked closely, you could swear, just faintly, her lips were curved into a smile.